Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Power to Pivot podcast. I am so excited today. Author TB Wayne is joining me on the show. TB, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks for asking. I am so excited. I don't know if everybody can see in my camera A Foreshadowing of Darkness. This is your book.
That's my book.
I have been reading it and I am in love with it. So tell us about this book.
So it's a book. It's I guess dark fantasy. It is about how a hero turns into a villain. It's kind of a mix of several genres. It takes place far in the future, 1,000 years after the destruction of mankind and civilization. Our civilization has started to come out of the darkness, kind of in a dark ages almost level of technology. And there's a group of people called the Army of St. Michael, and they work for a temple, the first temple, and they go out in threes as warriors. And their job is to protect us as we're regaining a foothold from bad guys, from illegal activities by other humans, by mutations, creatures that are mutated by the nuclear radiation, and humans that have been mutated. And they have a gift. It's called the gift of Io, and they can almost perform magical feats. And their job is to go around and stand in the breach between us and the darkness.
It's Your writing in this is so descriptive. Um, I have to say, first commend you on getting the story written, but then the descriptions, you can put yourself in the story as well. It's really well done.
Thank you. One of the goals for me, I've been reading since I was a child, was immersion. I wanted you to forget that you were reading. I
Mhm.
wanted you to feel like you were there, because that was always the magic part of reading a book to me, was
Mhm.
that I got to be there. It was total immersion.
So I'm not going to give details, but there's one particular scene, and if I can just talk about it, I think it's around chapter 12, um, where she's been challenged to the dance,
Oh yeah,
and
Yele.
and that scene I think has been my favorite, one of my favorites so far. So like you can just feel like the energy of what you're bringing in this story.
Yeah,
How did you come to write this?
that scene.
The Just the story itself.
So I was sitting. I started writing in high school, really, maybe junior high. I had a friend who wrote 25 pages, and I just thought that was the most amazing thing ever. Um, he wrote a 25-page story, so I kind of fell in love with books and writing from that, and playing Dungeons and Dragons as a kid. Um, I got in the Marine Corps and then got out, and I was still involved in creativity and writing and whatnot. I liked writing poetry. Got into college using my GI Bill, and my creative writing professor pulled me after class one day, and I thought it was going to be a good thing. And
You
she
hope, you always hope, right?
yeah, I thought it was going to be a great assignment, but she waited till everybody was gone, and then she held up my assignment, my writing, and she said, "This is too good for any dumb Marine to have written. So I know you must have stolen this. You plagiarized it. Whose is it, and who wrote it?" And refused to believe that I had. For some reason, I think I was already in a position where I wasn't real happy with school anyway, after having been in the infantry and gone around the world and done the things I'd done, driven, 3-ton amphibious vehicles, and had a fire team of guys that depended on me. I think I think being around a bunch of kids and people that didn't appreciate what I had done, I just said, forget it. And I stopped school and I stopped writing. I never wrote again until August 6th. My wife and I were watching a show on Netflix, and it was about comics and video games and villains and good guys. And I can't remember the name of the show right now, but in the show, they asked, do you think the villains know that they're the villains? Do they know they're the bad guy?
Yeah.
And so I thought about Sauron from Lord of the Rings immediately. Then I wondered, does Sauron know that he's the bad guy? Well, maybe he does. He might, but I bet you he thinks he's fighting for something else. He wants to establish order or something. He's got a reason. And then it occurred to me most bad guys throughout the history have kind of always thought they were standing up and being the one to establish structure or order. And I had a character I created in Dungeons and Dragons. I moved 13 times before I graduated high school. I was
Wow.
short. I was always tiny. I was always picked on, always bullied. Um, when I was playing, I got mad one day at being bullied. I got hung on a fence, and playing Dungeons and Dragons, I decided to make a character that nobody would mess with, nobody would bother, and I modeled him after the code of the Yakuza, which is pretty strict. But basically, if you don't mess with them, they won't mess with you. Just follow the rules. But if you violate those rules, they're going to kill you. They're going to kill your family. They're going to kill your village, and everybody will pay. So I created this guy. He was a drow. Drow had just come out before Salvatore made them famous. We were playing Temple of Elemental Evil in our campaign group, and I made a drow named Aron Mistweaver. He was a fighter mage, and he was lawful evil. He was like a mafia boss. And if you crossed him, you were a dead man. Nobody messed with him, and he was kind of my catharsis. He was my way of not being picked on. And I asked myself, would Aron have thought he was the bad guy? And there was no way. He does not see himself that way. And August 7th, I put pen to paper and started writing a story. And it's basically, this is Aron's story. How does he become what he is?
It's such a fascinating, well, there's a lot there that we could talk about. First, how angry you must have been at that teacher. Like, I'm thinking about that. Like, you put your heart and soul into anything, and for someone to go, clearly you plagiarized. Like, what was that moment like for you?
It was offensive. I'm still proud of having been in the Marines, but to honestly, I can't, I got to put all cards on the table. One of the reasons I got out was because I knew everybody in charge of me was not as smart as I was. I was in the infantry. We're kind of, they tease us and call us crayon eaters. So I felt like I had more opportunity, but to be attacked that way and just to have the assumption made immediately that I couldn't have written that, I wasn't smart enough. I regret letting her have that kind of power over me.
Mm-hmm.
But
What was the moment like for you when you realized you had to let it go? Was it that moment when you sat down to start, channeling that through your villain, or?
truthfully, I started thinking about it in chapter 3. I didn't remember until I started writing that that's why I quit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually been more cathartic talking about it and writing a little bit about it on my own website. That I let somebody have too much power over me and what I love. I have never been so happy. I'm good at my job. I'm good at my career, but I love this. I look forward to writing every day. I
Yeah.
don't have any problem sitting down and write. I mean, I've been taken away from it for a while, but um, I let somebody have way too much power over me, and nobody should do that. Nobody should stop their dreams because somebody else got in the way.
It's an important message. Like, it's one of the things we talk about here a lot on the show is just that, you have that power within you to create whatever it is you want, whether it's writing your book or finishing that project. And the minute you step out of that authenticity,
Yeah,
I think is we steer off course when
yeah.
that happens.
I
Um,
love the title of your podcast, "The Power to Pivot," because I gave up my power to that teacher. I gave it up. I let her make me pivot off of my course, and it took me taking back that power to pivot back on.
I love that you are so willing to share that, because I mean that's right there. You made that conscious choice to say, well, screw that. Like, I have this passion. I know that I have this in me, and it has to be shared.
Yeah,
You made that choice in that moment. And I think we talk about it. It's never too late.
no,
Literally at any moment you can choose that. Um, you know, as you're writing this story, though, you have this person who would never admit he's a villain. you know Tell us about that, because the concept of the villain and the origin story is I'm fascinated by it. And you're mentioning the Lord of the Rings character, and I think about Wicked. I don't know if you're familiar with Wicked,
Yes.
and the untold story of the Witches of Oz, and Elphaba. And I'm fascinated behind the psychology of what made her a villain in that story. So let's talk about this.
Okay. So my character is he's a soldier in some ways, and his job is to protect people. He's been raised as an orphan in a sheltered environment, reinforced a lot of the ways they did with us in the military, and especially in the Marine Corps, telling us we were special, unique, gifted. Our job was to protect people. He is a believer, 100% believes that he is there to help people and protect everyone, especially kids. He really gets upset when kids are hurt. And I think that's because he was raised as an orphan, is kind of the logic there. Um, but he's also really, really arrogant. He's certain he's always right. And he doesn't like it when people challenge his thought process. And he gets easily offended, easily hurt, as a lot of young men do. Thinks he knows better, and in each triad, the leader is a woman. Men are never the leaders of the triad. They call them the cherubs. The cherubs, the female leaders, they're trained in strategy, um, close combat techniques. They're trained in organization and archery, and they focus more on the strategy of war and combat than the actual physical combat. And they're all paired up with two seraphs. And the seraphs are charged with fighting. Well, he thinks he's smarter than his friend, who is the cherub, Janlin. Um, and as they proceed, there's some conflict that arises because he is smart and he does start to pick up on some things that aren't right, that are in error. I don't want to give too much away, but he starts to find hints of secrets that she's keeping hidden from him. So they start to discover secrets about the organization that they work for, and these things all grab him by the nose. And as he digs one up, he finds something else buried beneath it. And he keeps finding more layers. He's peeling the onion and he's finding out there's more involved here. There's more to this. And I've been lied to my whole life. And then so he questions himself. He questions what he's doing. The only thing he knows for sure is he's got to protect those around him and do whatever he has to establish justice for the people around him. And that's where things go haywire, because he starts to take that to an extreme.
Do you think it sounds like with the villain stories, like they start with a mission, a personal mission, and it just continues to grow and get bigger. And then
Yeah.
at some point, somebody comes down the line and goes, no, 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 you're not doing
Right.
this. And
Right.
then the tables get turned.
Yeah. So the tables will eventually get turned. The first three books I'm writing are going to be the Rise of Aurora. The series, the trilogy is called the Rise of Aurora. The second trilogy is going to be the Fall.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay. When can you give us like a progression, like a timeline when we can expect all of the books?
so I wrote the first book in 7 weeks. This one's taking a little longer. This book too. I'm about halfway done. I'm aiming for a May release. So hopefully then I'll have the first trilogy out and published in ebook, paperback, and audio by the end of the year. That's the
Fantastic.
aim. I've got my narrator signed on for all three of the first three books. I want him on for all six because I'd like the voices to stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You
so
have a plan in mind here.
yeah, I'd like to get them knocked out. The story's already done. I'm in book 6 in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually rewriting a chapter right now because I kind of took the characters too far. I've got to show a proper build up to these decisions that they're making, and um, I'm having to take a step back and say, they're not that far yet.
Yeah. What's your process like as a writer? Are you scheduling time every day? Do you just kind of let it flow out of you? 7 weeks is like nothing.
Yeah, I wrote,
It's
and then
fast.
there was a couple weeks of editing with my editor after that. But I edit each chapter as we go, and I got two editors, and they edit each chapter as we go. and I'll go back and we'll do each chapter at least 3 times, trying to catch any errors or processes. But I typically just write freeform. The story's already in my head. I don't have notes anywhere. I don't have a wall of index cards. I don't keep track of anything. And uh, I've been in business for a while now, and I do presentations, and I usually wait until inspiration strikes to write my 3-hour PowerPoint. Drives my wife crazy. Uh, but I kind of write the books the same way. I will, while I'm driving or while I'm doing other things, I'm planning the story in my head and creating, like I came up with another section of it yesterday. And the weird thing is when you're writing, at least for me, the story takes over. When I started this story, it was, the genre is odd. It's not just dark fantasy. It's got some science fiction in it. It's got some uh, different elements to it. Grimdark is kind of where I've fallen in to believe it sits, but some of this happened while I was writing.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it just the character said, "No, we're going to go this way,"
Mm-hmm.
and it was a weird process. So I don't know if I've really settled on a process yet. I'm pretty ambiguous. I'm all over the place.
That's okay. I think it sounds like a really almost an intuitive approach because you're just kind of letting it happen as it needs to and as the story. You're not forcing it. You know the
Yeah,
story's there. You're just allowing it to come through in whatever way that looks like. There's a
yeah,
there's a real authenticity to that, and you're kind of just trusting the process as you go.
yeah.
And I think that that makes for uh, like a relaxed sort of writing. Like it takes the pressure off. I know for me, that's how the first book kind of flowed out. It came to me. I just allowed it to come out of me.
Yeah.
Um, and when I was writing the second book, and even a little bit with the third one, it was like as soon as I started to try to push it, then it was like, nope, resistance is on, forget it, nothing's coming out. And it took a lot longer than I thought it would have.
That's the
Um,
same, exact same thing.
it's interesting to me because we start to think that we have to sit down and we have to do it this way and there has to be this rule and this process. That wasn't like it for me at all. So
This isn't a job for me. This is love. I love doing this, and I think if I let it become a job, I'll lose the passion for it, and I don't want to do that. It's been too long, man. I'm ready to have fun with this.
your characters, I think, deserve that, your work, the story. And I think that when you sit down and just kind of allow it, there's this sort of energy that flows into the book with you
Yeah.
almost. And I don't know, it just kind of sweeps you up into the story with you. So I'm fascinated by what's going to happen next. So before we forget, I want to pause for a second. Where can we find your book?
Amazon. I'm doing the KDP Select process. I'm self-published. It's on ebook and paperback. I do have a small supply of paperbacks that I'll sign for people on my own website, www.tbwayne.com. If they want it, I charge the same price as Amazon. It's just the shipping that gets added to it. My book is also an audio format. It came out on the 6th of this month, and um, that is on Amazon, iTunes, and I think that's it. You can get them. Oh, and Audible, of course.
Okay. We'll make sure that all the links go in the show notes
Cool.
and up on the website. This way it's easy to get to. Um, what is it for you as you're reading something or you're watching a movie? What captivates you with a villain? Like what are the like your elements for your villain character?
I think villains that are just um, slasher murderers are boring. I wanted to have a villain. I think villains need to have depth or mystery or something unique that characterizes them. I've always been a fan of the Joker.
Mm-hmm.
The Joker, you can't really figure out what his mission is. He's clearly got one, and it's got something he's focused on. He has something he wants to do,
Mm-hmm.
and he almost sticks to a code of ethics about how he does it.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire that in a way. You got to stick to your guns no matter what. If they're your guns, you got to stick to them. I think the villain can't just be a Machiavellian, the villain laugh kind of guy. He's got to have a reason behind what they're doing. Even if you can't discern that reason, there's got to be something that put them into the position they're in, because human beings don't just wake up and break and do the things that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's a process. The environment, the people surrounding them. There's traits like racism. Racism isn't something you're born with. It's something you're taught.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing is, why does somebody choose to start hurting animals at a certain age, or abusing others, or doing these terrible things that humans do to each other? Why do we do that? Somewhere along the lines, if we're not actually having actual mental trauma or issues, somebody taught us to do something. I remember a kid that liked to shoot birds with BB guns. Well, his dad taught him to do that. Somebody teaches us somewhere to be bad. So how does a villain become a villain? What are the external catalysts that happen? So that's the story in a nutshell. Is it's a series of small steps that you take. If you take this step, if you're able to shoot a bird, well, what's next? Can you kick a dog? You hurt the cat? And then how many steps do you have to take until the people show up? And so that's what my character is doing. He ends up taking justice into his own hands
Mm-hmm.
because of something that happens early on, and he starts to discover that taking justice into his own hands is easier every time he does it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he starts to decide that he's a much better arbiter of how justice should be meted out than any trial or jury or justice, or the way they're supposed to do it with the three laws. Um, and so once you take certain steps, you're capable then of doing things that others aren't, and that's not always a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a cause in terms of what they're searching for or what their purpose becomes. And I think that, to go back and look at where the roots of that can be interesting, because there does seem to be a progression along the way
Mm-hmm.
of, you know, this happened, and then you can almost watch the chain of events, and then there's that moment when they've kind of skipped over to the dark side for good. Um, do you think that when they realize they're the villain, like what's the antidote? At what point did they pivot as characters, or do
So
they have to?
I have that point written already on a piece of paper in my files, which is the end of book 3.
Ooh, okay.
It's the realization that if this is what you want me to be, then I'm going to embrace it.
Do you
And
think they have to, though?
I
In
think
general, like,
I think some people delude themselves. I think we are masters at deluding ourselves into believing that what we're doing is okay. I
mhm,
think I see it a lot in my work. People deluding themselves into saying that it was okay to steal that. The
mhm,
company owed me. So a lot of people make decisions to um, do bad things because they rationalize a story within themselves that makes it okay. And that's exactly what my main character is doing. Nobody
mhm.
cared. This guy hurt a child. Nobody's going to care if he dies. He deserves to die. And I don't have a problem doing that.
Right, right. Um, how do you stay grounded, when you're going through the 7 weeks and you're writing, and because there's a lot in this book. So as you're writing furiously and it's just kind of pouring out of you, how do you just stay you and not get drained or burn out from the process?
Yeah. It was draining. It was a lot, but it was cathartic for me too, because this has been waiting to get out for a long time. Um, I'm married. I've got 2 kids at home, so we do pizza night, and we all make pizzas and make funny faces on them and do things. Um, my wife and I are gardeners, so the garden helps me a lot. I love growing chili peppers and trying to do different vegetables. I do different vegetables every year, just trying different things, what works here in Florida and what doesn't. Um, for me, it's I've got a little buddy in here. If you hear him, my Boston Terrier just walked in.
Yep, I just saw them.
He's a mortar. So for me, staying grounded is just doing other things. It gives time to break away from the book and being so focused in on it. I think you can get burnt out. I think a couple of times I had to walk away
Mm-hmm.
and just take a couple of days away from the story. I did 12,000 words one day,
That's a
and
lot.
I just I was having fun, but I didn't eat dinner. I didn't have anything to drink. I was completely ignoring what was going on with them. I think I have to enjoy the process, but I think I have to also make sure I stop the process and go to my daughter's concert or go to my son's soccer game and make sure that I'm still doing the things that make me who I am.
Yeah. That self-care. And I think that this is true no matter if you're writing, creating anything, or just trying to get through day to day, that self-care piece is important because it's like refueling. And then I think there's can be some fear though there. Like if you take that step back, are you going to come back to it?
Yeah.
If you take time away, what's going to happen? But when you do, you're like better equipped to handle whatever it is that happens after that.
Yeah. There was a couple of times I actually caught myself getting grumpy or resentful that I had to do these other family things. I wanted to get that story out so badly. It was a compulsion. And I really had to fight myself and say, what are you doing? You're doing this for fun. This isn't this critical. Relax. It's not your wife's fault that you want to go right. And yeah, they don't understand why you're doing it, but just go enjoy making pizza with the kids and stop being this way.
What kind of pizza do you guys make? You have
I,
your family
my
recipe?
my daughter doesn't make anything but pepperoni, but
Hey, there you go.
we just made one the other night that was pepperoni, bell peppers, and onions, and we just make designs on them and stuff, and have pizza night. We have ice cream Sunday night. We have pizza night. We have a couple of different nights, and we just make sure to do things as a family because my son is actually graduating high school and is going to be off to college soon. So trying to enjoy the last few moments we have.
Goes quick. Do you guys think, I bet you have some great veggies from the garden that you can throw on those pizzas too.
We do. I just grew onions for the first time. That was fun. Grew some sweet potatoes last year. Those didn't go on the pizza though. Those were different.
Huh,
But
I wonder how that would be.
I don't think they.
No, you never know. You could have,
Yeah.
anybody out there listening, if you want to throw it on there and let us know how that goes, please report back. Um, so again, it's a foreshadowing of darkness. You can find it. Tell us again where you can find the book.
Amazon. It's
Mhm.
on Amazon primarily.
And we'll put everything up on the show notes. And if people want to reach out to you on social media,
I'm on just about all of it. Is TV Wayne. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Um, I'm on MeWe, and I've got a Facebook page. So I'm all over the place. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on quite a bit. So anybody's welcome to reach out and jibber jabber.
last question, as you're looking at this book and it's published now and you have more, actually two questions, more coming, um, what do you say to that teacher?
Oh, I sent her a book.
Did you? Did you get a response?
No, I
Oh,
didn't.
wow. What
But
was there
I
like a
absolutely
secret
did.
message? Like what is it you want her to know?
It was a middle finger, is what it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
It was a middle finger. It was, you know what? It was a bit of me just saying, you know what? Shame on me for letting you stop me from doing this for the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm. Good for you. I'm again, congratulations. The guys, pick up the book, A Foreshadowing of Darkness. It is definitely an amazing read, well worth your time. We'll put the links in the show notes. Connect with TB, and we're gonna look for the next book coming soon.
Confluence of Shadows is the next book.
All right, and let us know when that's releasing so that we can make sure to let everybody know.
I'll do it.
Any last minute thoughts before we wrap up today?
No, none for me. I'm good. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much, guys. Remember, we're going to end the way we do every episode. Remember, you are never stuck, you are never lost, and you are never alone. At any given moment, you can use your power to pivot, make a new choice, and start again. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, TV. Bye, everybody.